Is it nature or nurture? Beauty, brains, talent, natural wisdom, or your parents? What differentiates a good language learner from the quitters? That is exactly the question we are going to answer in today's video. Hello there, beautiful language learners. I hope you're doing well. I am so excited to be here with you today because we are going to once again demystify some myths that exist. We're going to psychoanalyze a little bit and look at what are the key differences between successful language learners and quitters, or the people who really struggle when it comes to language learning. So we're going to be looking at a little bit of quantitative research paired with my personal experiences and observations, obviously having been in the language learning world for since I was a child. So before we get started, don't forget to click the subscribe button and like this video. Of course, if you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up. I would be very appreciative. But without further ado, let's get into it. So the key points that we're going to touch on in this video are going to be quite, to the point, very quick fire, because otherwise I could honestly genuinely make a video or a separate video on each and every single one of these points. So if you have any comments, if you have any arguments or things that you would like to counter, please go ahead. I am always up for a good discussion, a good debate, but also if you're going to start one, let's keep it strictly to the facts and not ad hominem. But anyway, one thing that is always thrown around and something that is a very popular concept is the 10,000 hour rule by Malcolm Gladwell, which came from, I think, Outliers. And basically this theory details that it takes 10,000 hours to learn a skill. Now, let's just look at the actual time frame and the facts. 10,000 hours is roughly the equivalent amount of time that a person spends at a full-time job over 5 years. 5 years. And when I think about my own experiences in terms of language learning, and for example, Portuguese, I'm in my second year of learning Portuguese, and I would say, and I think my videos and experience can speak for this, that I have grasped the language to quite a high level in way less time than 10,000 hours. So what is this all about? And I think that we should really become clear on what it means. And this 10,000 hour rule is not about how long it takes to obtain a skill or even become really proficient and obtain a high level in a skill, but it's about master level. And most language learners, unless you're really you're in it for life, like how I was with German, where my goal was to speak like a native speaker, and it definitely took around 5 years to get there. But most of us are not aiming to be world class in language learning. We're not aiming to write PhDs in a foreign language. Maybe you are, and that is cool too. But it's important just to note that this 10,000 hour rule is about reaching master level and not actually obtaining a skill. So now that we have clarified that, let's go into a little bit of psychoanalysis. So what actually differentiates a successful language learner from a quitter, from someone who really struggles? Do you consider yourself to be a good language learner? Do you consider yourself to be good at languages? And the answer that you give is a very good indicator around your metacognition, so your beliefs about your thoughts and your beliefs around learning itself. Because one of the key distinctions between successful language learners and the quitters, it's all in your mind. It all starts in your mind and with the beliefs that you have about yourself. Our beliefs and previous experiences shape our future expectations. And unfortunately, when it comes to language learning, a lot of us have the primary experience that is ingrained in our mind of language learning being something quantifiable, being something that was evaluation and examination based. So when we approach it and it might be using a different medium. So, as adults, we now have beautiful means of technology. So we look at apps, we look at online courses, or we might even just find a private tutor. But we still have those previous beliefs that shape our expectations. So we go into it and we are preconditioned in thinking, okay, I have this list of content that I need to learn, so I'm going to learn it. So one of the key differences is that a successful language learner has a very experiential approach to language learning. So they don't just focus on one thing, but they set their goals and they take it step by step. They use different mediums and they don't place too much emphasis on the amount of time that they spend on something. That is not equivalent to them feeling successful or achieving their goal, but rather they have a trial and error based approach. So oftentimes when I'm confronted by someone with the question, what's the right way to learn a language? What's the best way to learn a language? What's the fastest way? That is often a very good indicator of someone who, first of all, hasn't actually gone and tested out what works for them. They're not aware of their own learning style and their own abilities, or they're too focused on the wrong things. So that being said, they're too focused on avoiding failure, actually. And when you avoid failure, or people who have this fear of failure, it's often just a fear of judgment. It's often a fear of being ridiculed, of wasting time, or of this, it's a fear of a non-existent fear. So a fear of a fear of a fear. But success is not like this. This is one of my favorite images ever. Most people believe that success is a straight line from here to there, but the world's best polyglots and best language learners, if you ask any of them, they each will have a very different approach. They each will have a very different answer to the questions that you pose about, the best techniques, or how did you learn this language, how did you learn that language. But the common denominator is that they all just went and did it. They tried out things. They adjusted what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and they found out what type of learner they were. So if there is one piece of advice I can give in this domain, it would be to really explore yourself, because self-doubt and these fears come from not knowing, from a lack of knowledge, from not knowing what works best for you. So I highly, highly recommend follow your gut, follow advice, yes, from other people, but don't be so fixated on it, but rather take something, flow with it, and readjust. And the next point has to do with learning strategies and communication strategies. A lot of people who struggle with languages, or you'll often find the most common thing being, when I'm in the classroom or this, I can read a lot, I can understand a lot, but I can't speak a lot. Often it's because strugglers have a huge gap between their learning strategies and their communicative strategies. They don't spend enough time on developing their communicative strategies. So what are these communicative strategies? A learning strategy is everything problem solving based. It's analysis. It's you in the textbook finding out or finding the pattern of how to conjugate the verbs and doing the exercises and writing, that post or whatever it is. Those are learning strategies. It's all about utilizing your memory and cognitive abilities to find out about the language. But it's not actually about using the language. This is where your communication skills come in. So communicative abilities being how well can you implement the structures and test words, test phrases when you are speaking or when you are actually using the language. It's about guessing, about making estimated guesses about what something means or how something is used. It's about filling in the gaps when you are surrounded by native speakers and you don't understand everything, but you use the context. So those abilities are so important to develop. So a successful language learner kind of has a balance on both of those. They're not too focused on the how, so all the memory techniques and all of that, they found what works for them, and then they pair that with actually using the language, doing what is going to be most effective to achieve their goals of speaking a language. Next up, successful language learners don't compare themselves to other people in the sense of they do not see other people's journeys or other people as the competition. And I can tell you, I fell into this trap whilst I was at high school, whilst I was at university. I compared myself so unrealistically at times that it didn't do any good. It did a disservice to me, to my own progress, because it obviously altered my mindset. Hold on, I need to sneeze. When is hay fever season going to be over? So it altered my mindset. It made me really rigid in my thinking, and I didn't want to, it was just very debilitating. So not comparing yourself. Don't compare yourself, because this is where the fears come in, the procrastination comes in. Is that another sneeze coming in? Embracing the natural learning process is what a good language learner will do. I think there is a fine line between having people around you to motivate you and having, evaluation-based exercises and things like that to motivate you, and really wanting to just one-up someone or be better than someone to fuel your ego. There is a huge difference in that. And using other people as inspiration is beautiful and it's great, but just know that it's about you. It's you versus you, and what can you do today? What can you do tomorrow to be better than you were yesterday? It's all about that, because success really is a habit. Achieving your language goals is a habit. It's just about doing something every day that is going to reach your goals or help you reach your goals effectively, and continuing with that. Consistency is so underestimated. So that is one of the key points as well, because a successful language learner will embrace uncertainty. They embrace uncertainty and challenge with an open mind, with a problem solver mindset, that they know whatever challenge comes along, this is good. This is part of the process. My favorite image, once again, it's all like this. A to B there's a huge squiggly, messed up line and path in between that, and it's all about embracing the process. Successful language learners also utilize pre-existing knowledge to their benefit. So, when you hear people say knowing one language or two languages helps you learn other languages, it does, but not because of those languages somehow being related or interrelated, but it's about the skills that come from those languages, the basis that you can use to help memorize words, to help memorize structures, to have a base of comparison, to see how does this new language differentiate itself from my pre-existing knowledge of other languages. But not only languages, it's about using really your pre-existing knowledge of any domain to help you learn and process the new target language. So your knowledge of sports, your knowledge of music, your knowledge of learning, of books that you've read, of life, everything helps in the language learning process. You just have to make sure that you tap into that and open up your mind to creativity, open up your mind to finding links, because our brain loves patterns, it loves linking things together. So that's why, for sounds or for whatever, like images, I use a lot of imagery when I'm learning, because it helps me really ingrain new words and new concepts a lot easier. And as I said, it's not always about the actual meaning or the actual word being similar to something in another language, but being similar to a previous experience or of something that is in my base of experience. So those are some of the main standout differences between successful language learners and the people that give up or don't succeed in their language learning. And just to summarize on a final note, really, your metacognition matters more than you think. The way that you think about learning, the beliefs that you have about yourself, your identity, and your skills. Remember that you are capable of anything. Do the things today that your future self is going to thank you for. I know that sounds so cliche, but it's true. You are your future self. So everything that you do now, make sure it's enabling you. Learning strategies are just as important as communicative strategies. Look this up on Google, find out how you can, where you perhaps have a deficiency, how you can improve your strategies more, your beliefs more, and as well, just putting yourself in those situations. Everything has value. Every experience has value. Even when you're reading the label on something, that is an experiential type of learning. it is learning. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to give this video a like. I would appreciate your love. Follow me on Instagram and my other social media channels, which you will find below. And as well, subscribe to see more from moi, and I will see you guys on Sunday, where I have a brand new interview with somebody well known in the language learning scene. Leave a comment, take a guess at who it is, and I will see you soon. Mwah, ciao ciao, bis zum nächsten Mal.